Hello and welcome to exercise 11.6, and this is summarizing pretty much everything we've learned on the general parabola, and it is also highly likely to show up on HSC exam questions. So let's go through the process and see what we can generate. Now this is what we do know. We do know that when the form of a parabola is in the form x squared equals 4ay, the parabola opens upwards. Any x squared parabola opens upwards or downwards, and when it's a positive 4ay, it opens upwards. If it was x squared equals negative 4ay, it would open downwards. We know the vertex is at 0, 0. The focus is 0, a with a focal length of a, and the directrix is a units below the vertex at y equals minus a. This is stuff that we already knew. If the form was y squared equals 4ax, it would open to the right. And if it's y squared equals minus 4ax, the parabola opens to the left. They're the general forms of a parabola. Now let's have a look what happens if we actually move the parabola around. You may or may not remember, when we dealt with circles, we actually had this. We had x minus h in brackets squared plus y minus k in brackets squared equals r squared. And that represents any circle where the center of the circle was h, k, and the radius was r. So we're going to be doing something similar to that now, and that is we're going to be looking at it and saying instead of x minus h squared and y minus k squared, you're used to seeing a parabola in the form x squared equals 4ay. Well, if the vertex is no longer at 0, 0, instead of x squared, we get x take h squared. The 4a stays the same. Instead of a y, we get y take k. And the new vertex is now at the point h, k, which comes from our brackets. Don't worry too much about the focus and the directrix. We'll sort that out in a moment with a bit of logic. And the focal length is always a. If the parabola is upside down, it's still the same. The vertex is at h, k, and that minus means that the parabola is now upside down. See the x bracket is squared? X squared means the parabola opens upwards or downwards, and the minus means, well, it must open downwards. When we talk about opening to the right and the left, it's normally y squared equals 4ax. Now I have y take k squared equals 4ax take h. Now, be really careful. If I actually had something like this, y minus 2 in brackets squared equals 20, x plus 3. What would the vertex be? Well, the vertex comes from the brackets, but the vertex would actually come from the x bracket first, not the y bracket, the x bracket. So the vertex would be at minus 3 plus 2. So just remember, when you're reading the vertex off, it must always originate with the x bracket first and the y bracket second. And when they're opening left and right, they'll always lead with the y bracket at the beginning. So don't read that as the vertex is at 2, minus 3. That's wrong. It has to be at minus 3, plus 2. If the parabola opens to the left, it's exactly the same. Y take k in brackets squared equals minus 4a x take h. So let's actually go through some examples. What we're going to be doing is reading a question first and trying to figure out a way we can try and answer it. So let's read it. Find the equation of the parabola with a focus that we know is 3, 4 and a directrix is at y equals minus 6. So let's sketch what we do know. Now, you won't obviously draw a sketch that's anywhere near as detailed with grids, but you can still do a sketch. Now the point 3, 4, because I've got a grid here, I can actually put it on and let it stand out quite nicely. Out 3, up 4. Directrix of y equals minus 6 is a horizontal line that goes through the y-axis at minus 6. Now the important thing to know is that the focus we've got listed, the directrix we've graphed. If you look at from the focus to the directrix using a straight line that's perpendicular to the directrix, halfway between is where the vertex would be for the parabola. So the vertex would be out 3, down 1. If you look where my red dot is, you can see there are 5 units above it and 5 units below it, so that's where the vertex would be. And it would be the 3.3, minus 1, and obviously the parabola would open upwards. Now, what's the value of A? Remember, A is the focal length. How far is it from the focus to the vertex? Let's go 1 unit, 2 unit, 3 unit, 4 unit, 5 units I'm counting there. So the focal length is 5. Now I know what the focal length is. It's important that I look at the vertex because the vertex gives me the value of h and k. H is 3 and k is minus 1. So we know this is a parabola that opens upwards. If it opens upwards, the form of the parabola, the formula we're using is x take h in brackets squared equals 4a, y take k. We know a is 5. We know h and k are 3 and minus 1. We just put those values into our formula. So let's see what we generate. There's our formula for any parabola that opens upwards. If I put in the h values and the k value and the a value, I end up with x take 3 in bracket squared equals 4 lots of 5, y minus minus 1. Let's tidy that up. 4 5s are 20. The y take minus 1 becomes a y plus 1. And that's our parabola. So that's a parabola that has a vertex at 3, minus 1. And 4 5s are 20, so focal length must be 5, so that all balances. Now we have to expand the brackets. So if I focus on this part here, the shortcut for expanding x minus 3 in brackets squared, square the first term, x times x, x squared. X times minus 3 is minus 3x, double it, you get minus 6x. And the last term squared, minus 3 times minus 3 is plus 9. And that gives me my x squared takes 6x plus 9. And on the other side, 20 times y and 20 times 1 gives me 20y plus 20. Let's minus 20y to both sides and minus 20 to both sides. And that generates my answer. You'll notice that the plus 9, when I minus 20 to it, 9 take 20 gives minus 11. So that's where the minus 11 comes from. So there's our first example. Now, every one of the first 4 examples are going to be very similar to this. And this represents pretty much any parabola. Remember, if the vertex was at 0, 0, then h would be 0 and k would be 0, and the formula would have just been x squared equals 4a y. So let's go on to our second example and see how we go. Let's find the equation of the parabola that now has a focus at negative 2, 3 and a directrix at y equals 5. Well, let's sketch it. So, minus 2, 3 is roughly there. You don't have to draw the grids. As a matter of fact, when you're drawing it, you do something like this. You just go, oh, minus 2, 3 is good enough there. And directrix of y equals 5, something like that, which means that the vertex would be somewhere in between. And my scale's not right there because this pen is not a very, very good pen for drawing, but hopefully you get the idea. So let's go back to my more accurate drawing. Directrix is 5, which means the vertex means to be halfway between the focus and the directrix. So there it would be there. It has to be somewhere along that line and halfway. So it's there. That point there would be the point negative 2, 4. I know it opens downwards. What's the equation? Okay, before we do that, I've got to figure out A. A is the distance from the vertex to the focus, which will be 1 unit. H comma K, I know from my vertex here, so H is minus 2, K is 4. Any parabola that opens downwards is x squared equals minus 4ay, but I've got an x take h and a y take k, so there's my formula. I know a, I know h, I know k. Let's plug them into our formula. So x minus minus 2 in bracket squared equals minus 4 times 1, y take 4. Let's tidy that up. If I expand these brackets, it'll become x squared. 2 times x, 2x, double it 4. X squared plus 4x, 2 2s are 4, plus 4 equals minus 4y plus 16 when I expand that bracket. Let's plus 4y and minus 16 to both sides. Remember this 4 when I minus 16 to it will give me minus 12, and there is the equation of this parabola here. Let's progress on to example 3. Feel free to try this. You can pause the video and then have a look and see what the answer is, but try it before I do it. Okay, let's graph the situation. We know what the focus is, we know what the directrix is. So the focus is 2 minus 2. The directrix is at x equals minus 4. Now x equals minus 4 passes through the x-axis at minus 4, which makes it a vertical line. So when I'm looking for my vertex, it'll be between the focus and that line, and halfway between would be about there. So that point there would be the point minus 1, comma, minus 2, and the parabola must therefore open to the right. My value of A is the distance from the vertex to the focus, which is 3. And h comma k we can know comes from the vertex, so h is minus 1 and k is minus 2. Now, a parabola that opens to the right is y squared equals 4ax, but this one I have y take k. Remember, the k always matches with the y and the h always matches with the x. So y take k squared equals 4ax take h. Let's plug our values of a, h and k in. We know the two minuses there become a plus, and 4 times 3 is 12. The two minuses become a plus, so we end up with that. Expand this bracket. Y when you square it, y squared. 2 times y, 2y, double it, you get 4y. 2 when you square it, 4. We'll end up with that expression there. Minus 12x and minus 12. Remember over here, 4 when you take the 12 gives me minus 8. Excuse me. There is the answer. One more example. We've done one that opens upwards. We've done one that opens downwards. This one opened to the right. The next one will probably open left, but let's try it. Focus at 4, 1. Directrix at x equals 8. Again, you can pause the video if you like and try it, and then come back to it. Okay, here's our sketch. 4, 1 is our point there. That's the focus. The directrix passes through the x-axis at 8. So, halfway between the focus and the directrix would be there. That is where the vertex would be. So it would be at the point 6, 1. And it would therefore open to the left. Now our value of A, the distance from the focus to the vertex, is 2 units. We can see that there. So A is 2, and the vertex gives us our h value and our k value, so h is 6 and k is 1. Remember, because it opens to the left, y squared equals minus 4ax, but we've got the k and the h to go with our terms. There's our formula. We can plug in our a, h and k. We can tidy it up because we know the minus 4 times 2 gives minus 8. Expand our brackets. Y squared times the 2 together and double it gives minus 2y plus 1. Expand our bracket out, minus 8x plus 48. Let's now plus 8x to both sides and minus 48. 1 take 48 gives minus 47, and there is our answer. Any one of those questions could be very similar to a HSC question. Find the equation of a parabola. Quite often they're actually easier. Let's go to examples 5 through 8, which are a different style now. Question or example 5 says that we have to find the vertex, find the focus, and find the directrix, and we're given the equation of the parabola. Written in a slightly different form, but that's okay. Now, in order to find the vertex, we need to actually complete the square. Completing the square will allow us to put this question in bracketed form and read off the vertex and calculate the directrix, calculate the focal length. So, complete the square. We're going to write a plus box and a minus box. What goes in the box? The number in front of the x, we need to halve that number there. So half of 4 is 2, and then square it. So you halve the number in front of x and then square it. Half of 4 is 2, 2 squared is 4, so 4 goes in each box. Now we're focusing on the first 3 terms. What will that factorise to? Numbers at times to give 4 and add to give 4 are 2 and 2. That'll always be half the number in front of x. So that will become x plus 2 in brackets squared, and we have our minus 4 equals 10y plus 26. Let's add 4 to both sides. 26 and 4 make 30. Now on the right hand side I'm going to take out a common factor of 10, which will leave me with 10 bracket y plus 3. This is now in bracketed form. It's an x squared equals 10y. X squared means it opens upwards or downwards. A plus 10 means it will open upwards. So this is a parabola that opens upwards. The vertex is at -2, -3. So you don't actually have to write this bit the way I'm writing it, but we know the parabola opens upwards. There's my formula for any parabola that opens upwards. This is the answer that I got over here. So what's the value of h? H is -2, k is -3, so the vertex is at -2, -3. Now if I look in front of the brackets that have y, I have a 4a and a 10. That means 4a equals 10. And if you do 4a equals 10, divide both sides by 4, you get a equals 10 on 4, or 5 over 2, or 2.5. I'm going to write it as 2.5 as a decimal. Doesn't really matter if you write it as a fraction or a decimal. I'll draw a sketch now, just so I can visualize what's going on. Effectively, I know the vertex is at -2, 3. I know that it has a focal length of 2.5, but the parabola opens upwards. So let's just draw a parabola that opens upwards. If the focal length is 2.5, that means I go 2.5 units up and 2.5 units down to find the directrix. So it looks something like that and something like that. So if I have, and because I'm going up and down, they're y values, so if I focus on the y value of -3 and I move up 2.5 units, that means I'd be at -0.5. So the focus would be at -2, -0.5. The directrix is going to be 2 units, or 2.5 units, sorry, down. So if I go 2.5 units down from -3, that's -5.5. So I've now got the vertex, the focus, and the directrix. Examples 6, 7, and 8 follow this same principle. So if you like, you can try example 6, pause the video, have a go at it. Remember, you've got to complete the square first and see if you can generate an answer. So we're finding the vertex, the focus, the directrix. So let's start by completing the square. It's x squared, so it's the x part that has to have the plus and minus box. What goes in the boxes? Half of -6 is -3. -3 when you square it gives 9, so each box should have a 9. Focusing on the first 3 terms. Numbers at times to give 9 and add to give -6 will be half of -6, -3 and -3. So you get x -3 in brackets squared. They come from those first 3 terms. -9 plus 5y minus 1 are leftovers. Let's look at the -9 and -1 gives -10. We can move that over to the right hand side. the positive 5y, we could subtract 5y to both sides. We end up with that statement there. Almost there. We now need to factorise the right-hand side so that we have a bracket that has y as its leading part inside the bracket. So let's take out minus 5 as a common factor. And if I do, be careful, it becomes minus 5 bracket y take 2. Think of it, just to expand it. What's minus 5 times y? Minus 5y. Minus 5 times minus 2 plus 10. I now have all the information I need to calculate the vertex and the focal length. Now, I do know this parabola opens downwards because it's an x squared equals minus y part. The minus and the x squared tell me the parabola opens downwards. So here's our formula when it opens downwards. It has a minus in it. Let's look to see what the vertex is. The vertex will be plus 3, comma, plus 2. So I know the vertex. If I look in front of my y bracket, minus 4a equals minus 5. Divide both sides by minus 4. Minus 5 divided by minus 4 is 5 on 4, or 1.25 if I write it as a decimal. Let's draw a sketch. So I know the vertex is across 3 up 2. I know that this parabola opens downwards, which means if I look at my vertex, I need to drop 1.25 units down to get the focus and rise 1.25 units up to get the directrix. Where did I get the 1.25 from? The focal length. So let's have a look. We know the vertex is 3, 2. The focus, if I'm looking, and this is a y direction movement, so the y value of the vertex is 2, and I've got to go another 1.25 units down, that'll pull me back to 0.75. So the focus is at 3, 0.75. The directrix is 1.25 units above the vertex. The y value is 2, go up another 1.25, 2 plus 1.25, 3.25. So there is the directrix. So we've done examples 5 and 6, a parabola that opens upwards, a parabola that opens downwards. Example 7 will open to the right. If you wish, you can pause, try it yourself, and see what you get. Let's write it to complete the square. Now, because the y is squared, we need to add and subtract our box for the y values. So let's have a look. Half of the number in front of y, half of 10 is 5. 5 squared is 25. Looking at the first 3 terms, we said half of 10 was 5. 5 5s are 25. So it's y plus 5 in brackets squared minus 25 minus 3x plus 13. Now the minus 25 plus 13 gives minus 12. You can move it to the other side, it becomes a plus 12. The minus 3x moves to the other side and becomes a plus 3x. This is almost ready. We need to take out a common factor of 3. And when we do that, 3 goes into 12 4 times, we get 3 bracket x plus 4. So this is a parabola that is in the form y squared equals. It means it opens left or right if it starts with a y squared, and because that's a positive 3, it will open to the right. Let's read off our vertex, being careful that the vertex must come with the x value first and the y value second. So the vertex will be negative 4, negative 5. But let's write our form. We know it opens right. Parabola that opens right is y minus k squared equals 4ax take h. So the vertex will be, h is going to be minus 4, minus 5. In front of the x brackets, 4a equals 3. Now if 4a equals 3, you can divide both sides by 4 and you get a equals 3/4. I'm going to treat it as a decimal, so a is 0.75. Let's draw our sketch. We're drawing a vertex at minus 4, minus 5. That's close enough. Doesn't have to be to scale. I know the parabola opens to the right. And I know that the focus will be just a little bit to the right of the vertex, and the directrix will be a little bit to the left of the vertex. How much is the little bit? 0.75. Now I'm moving left and right, which is the x direction, so if I look at the x value of my vertex, that's minus 4, so I'm going to move 0.75 units towards the y-axis or to the right, which means I'll be at minus 3.25. So there is minus 3.25 comma minus 5. The y value doesn't change because they're both similar distances below the x-axis in the y direction. Let's look at the directrix. We need to move left 0.75, so the x value is minus 4. Take away another 0.75, you get x is minus 4.75. One more example to go. Again, you can try it yourself and see how you go. This one, however, does get tricky. It's the hardest one here, but see how you go. Right, we don't need to find the focus, the equation, the directrix. Let's look at it. Let's complete the square first. Completing the square. So, half the number in front of y. Half of minus 4 is minus 2. Minus 2 squared is 4. So each bracket gets a 4. When I look at my first three terms, half of minus 4 is minus 2. I'll get y minus 2 in brackets squared equals minus 4 plus 8x minus 2. Minus 4 and minus 2 gives minus 6. I'm going to move them to the other side, it gives a plus 6. And when I move the 8x to the other side, it gives a minus 8x. And this is where the trickiest part happens. Now, if I have this, which I do, I need to take out a common factor of minus 8 so that I end up with x. Now I know that I need a minus here because when I look at it, minus 8 times a minus times a minus gives me the plus I'm looking for. But what number goes here? Well, the trick is to write the number that was there, whatever number that is, it doesn't matter, it's a 6. So I'll write down 6 and I'll put it over the number out the front, 6 over 8. We'll cancel it in a moment, but let's have a look at it. So we get minus 8 bracket x. Let's just double check this. What's minus 8 times minus 6 over 8? Minus 8 times minus 6 over 8. The 8's cancel, the minuses cancel, you're left with plus 6, which is what you want. So you could then rewrite that as minus 3 over 4 or minus 0.75. Any of those are fine. So I'm going to erase that now. Let's have a look. When you take out a common factor of minus 8, I get minus 6 over 8, which if I write as a decimal is minus 3/4, which becomes minus 0.75. I now know the vertex. Remember the x value first. The vertex is plus 0.75, comma 2. This is a parabola that has a y squared. Y squared's open left or right or left, I should say. If it's negative, it has to open to the left. So, opens left. There's our formula. The y squared equals a negative 4ax take h. Vertex is at plus 0.75, plus 2. Remember, x comes first. Minus 4a equals minus 8, which means when I divide both sides by minus 4, 8 minus 8 divided by minus 4 gives plus 2. That's my focal length. Let's draw a sketch. So I need to go to 0.75, comma 2. I know it opens left, which means the focal length is 2. There must be the focus must be to the left and the directrix must be to the right. I know the vertex. How far is it from the vertex to the focus? Well, we're going left and right, which is the x direction horizontally. So I look at the x number, 0.75, and I'm moving 2 units to the left. That'll take me to minus 1.25. When I'm looking at this point, the x value 0.75, move 2 units to the right, it'll become 2.75, and it's passing through the x-axis, so it's x equals 2.75 for the directrix. And there we have finished. That's quite a tricky question. That represents a lot of work. It's taken a long time to talk about these examples, and this is at least 2 classes worth of work. One just for all of the examples and another one to go through the questions. So enjoy. It's time for you to do some questions.